Hi everyone, this is Paul Colmsey from Seven Sigma, and I'm here with my daughter Ashley. Say hi, Ashley.
Hi.
And the reason we're recording this video is Ashley has been helping me with Power Apps, and so for the last 2 weeks she's been immersed in this tool. Ash is studying psychology at uni, so has no formal training in programming or anything like that outside of an affinity for maths, and actually has done a hugely brilliant job and come really far, and we've actually written quite an advanced application. So we're going to take you through how this thing works, and then we'll cover a few points off about how it was done. The application is like an audit app, so I suppose good Power App scenario, because it works on mobile devices, is you might be on site, you need to do an audit or a checklist, you take some photos, you fill in the checklist, you click submit, and it gets recorded. So it's basically an audit scenario. So first what we'll do, we'll use Power App Studio because my iPad is charging, and we'll take you through the app sort of overall, and then we'll talk about certain bits. And we'll talk about features as we go through the app. So the first thing, what you're seeing here, this is designed for an iPad, and it is internet connected at the moment, and as you can see, it's actually asking what type of audit do you want. So you've got some buttons here. Now the important thing is, and I'll show you later, these buttons are not hard-coded. It actually reads data from a SharePoint list, so you can actually add more audits to this system and you don't have to rewrite or recompile this application, so it's quite flexible. So if we were, for example, you're going to do a vehicle audit, like check a vehicle, you might be on site, do a safety check, and so you click and it takes us into this screen where the first thing you got to enter is a job number. Now a job number could be self-generated or generated from a system, but in our case we're just putting it in. And one little thing you'll notice, it actually said here, it knows it was a vehicle check, so it's asking for vehicle registration. So what should we put in? What do you reckon? Cat 2. Okay, Ashley likes her cats. So and description then, more cats?
Yeah.
Okay. More cats. So what's happened is, because we chose a vehicle checklist, up comes a little checklist down here. And so we get to say, right, oil level, did you check it? Yep, oil level passed, and it'll show us that it passed. Brake fluid, we checked that, it passed. But water level, unfortunately, water level didn't pass, and so we can actually say right here whether we've entered any actions to correct it. So if we say, filled radiator, and at that point we might want to take a photo. So over here is this tap or click to take a picture. If you're on an iPad or an Android, this would use the camera or ask you whether you want to use iCloud or a photo you've already taken. In this case, I'm just going to randomly take a picture from, I don't know, this will do, I don't know what it is, but we'll do it. So we've taken a photo and we've added this photo to the gallery. So here it is here. Now it's automatically generated a file name, it's tagged it against item 3, so that was item 3, the water level, and it's telling you it was a fail. If you want to put more details in on this photo, you can, so let's click it. And what it does, it comes up with a photo, and because this application talks to a weather API, it's also grabbed, it's currently outside where we are, 15.31 degrees Celsius. Sorry US people, I don't do Fahrenheit, so you'll have to figure it out yourself. It has been raining outside, 67% humidity, I reckon it's probably a bit more than that actually. And the wind speed is coming from the west at 7.2 knots. You can also see that this is where the photo was taken, so geographic coordinates are captured. And if we zoom in...
Wow, there's our house.
There's our house, and actually it did a reasonable job of where we physically are, because we're about
You've got my address.
there. We're about there. Anyway. So let's also put a description here. We'll say some stuff.
You're so bad at typing.
Stuff cat related. And at that point we can go, cool, we've entered some stuff about that, and back we are to here. Now we could take some more photos. We do the rest of our pass fails, and there's lots of them.
Add a photo to the top one.
Add a photo to the top one. Okay, that one there?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll add a photo to this one. We'll change picture. And let's grab a picture of the garden, the inside garden. It's a big picture too, it'll take a while to upload, but that's okay. And so there's another photo, and you can see here that it shows now one photo taken on the oil level, one photo taken on the water level. And actually, if we click the photos icon here, because over time you can take a few photos, it puts it all together. And so this is like your complete photo gallery, and it even shows you the test it was done on, the name of the file, whether it was a pass or fail, and at this point you can choose whether you want to keep it or not. In this case, we'll keep these photos. And so the final step is then you come in and you go, I'm going to submit this audit. We check the oil, happy with that, so we click yes, and off it goes, and it submits the audit to SharePoint, and then it's actually uploading the files to SharePoint via Flow, and it's also tagging them, so the description, whether it was a pass or fail. What else did we tag on that thing? The checklist ID, weather details,
location.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So that'll take a little bit of time because it's actually a big photo, but it shouldn't take too much long. And we'll just edit this out. Oh, there we go, we're done. It's successful. We don't have to edit out. So now if we come back to home, we can do another one. So what we'll do now is, that makes sense. And by the way, I should have actually showed you this bit. The idea here was suggested by a friend of ours. These, just say you've done a photo and it knows where you are geographically. In fact, you can see where we are. But this is a SharePoint list of upcoming audits in the same area. So we have a list of upcoming audits and we're storing their geographic coordinates. And so what Ashley did was she reads this list out of SharePoint, displays it here, but she also uses the Google Maps API and she plots each one as a little placeholder there. And so it might be a little hard to see, but number 2 and number 3, which is the local primary school and the park, is actually quite near our house. And so the ones near, she's tagged them as red. So that's basically a way of saying, hey, if you're going to audit this thing over here, and this one's due, you may as well go and audit while you're in the area. So that was quite a useful feature, and I guess showcases what this thing's capable of. But what we'll do now, what I think is pretty cool, is let's say you don't have internet. So I'm going to put this on airplane mode. And so we are now internetless, and watch what happens. So Power Apps has gone, hey there, you ain't doing Google Maps anymore because you're offline, and you're not going to get a refresh of these upcoming inspections. But you notice that you can still, these are all live, you can still like do audits. So this time we did a vehicle audit before. Let's do a electrical audit. We'll do electrical audit.
And then do a parks one.
And then do a parks one. So first up, again, same deal, put in a job number. But if you look really close, in the vehicle one we did, that was the vehicle number. It was actually asking for the vehicle rego, but now it's actually changed and it's asking for an asset number. And that kind of makes sense because with electrical stuff, generally it's an asset management type scenario. So the asset number for this was 3456. The description was, I don't know, some switch transformer. I'm just using electrical terms in no context that electrical person would agree with. So there's our switch transformer, and off we go. And this time what we might go is, look, they all pass, but what the hell, I'm going to take a photo anyway. So I'm going to change the take a picture. Let's actually go to some more interesting pictures. Look, the latest book that Ashley designed the cover of. Yeah, but Ashley designed the cover of, by the way. So as well as being really good at Power Apps now, she's a really good artist. So I've taken a photo. It's on ID number 5. So check out this. I'll just do one photo for this one. So we go to submit, and this time it says, well, are you sure you want to save? And then it warns you, you're currently not connected to the internet. Audits will be saved locally. So let's go, yep, cool with that. Click. And information submitted successfully. But now when we come back home, we have something new. It actually has this thing over here saying, hey, you've got some unsubmitted audits. And so basically you can keep doing audits and it'll build up a queue of unsubmitted ones. And so watch what happens. Now I'm going to put the internet back on. So airplane mode is off. And we just wait for our Wi-Fi to kick in again. Probably take a minute. You can tell because the map will suddenly spring back to life in a second. So shouldn't take, there we go. And so now what we've done, need to move it, it's not quite in a good position. But we've got a submit button there. And so for all of these unsubmitted audits, if I click submit now, it will now shoot this off and away it goes into SharePoint land. And so that one hopefully won't take as long because that's just a single photo. So there you go. So let's actually take a look at where all this went. And I also want to show something about adding a new button. So I'm going to quickly switch to SharePoint. So here we are over in SharePoint land. And we have I guess first up, let's talk about where everything went. So if I go to site contents, probably the easiest way. And what was the name of the list? It was inspection. Yeah. So all of the inspections go to a list. Oh, and there's some data we prepared earlier. But if I come down here, here's the more recent ones. There you go. There's more cats, the one that we did. And there's that switch transformer that we just did. So there's the two most recent inspections. Now, that's not the photos. That's just a standard SharePoint list, but there's all your metadata there. And all your inspection data, you can kind of see it hinted off to the side here too. But there's also a list called pics, really imaginative. And actually, when we were building this, I didn't really think through the list names, so the list names aren't that fantastic. But here's a library called pics. This is an asset library. And again, it'll probably have some pictures I prepared earlier, but you can see here, there you go, there's the most recent 3. There's the 2 pictures I did against the first vehicle one, the CATS one, and there's the most recent one we did on the electrical audit. Yeah, the electrical one. So that's a really good example of showing you how we can get this into SharePoint. And if you really want to have a look, if I change views, you can see all the metadata. So we've got everything about this thing. Its status, whether it was a pass, whether it was a fail, any extra descriptions we put in. Apologies for the name of the column, it really should just be description, but anyway. So hopefully that gives you, and it's auto-generated a file name, and the file name is based on the audit number, the date it was taken, and a sequence number. So here's my favorite bit though, that I reckon's cool. Normally with Power Apps, if I quickly go back to the app, draw your attention back to this thing. This is not, like if I can actually add more of these without having to rewrite or recompile and reshare this app. So for example, we've got a list in SharePoint called checklists, and this is like the master checklist, and it's got all of the different checklists, and you can see here, oil level, that's the vehicle check, and that's the first one. Brake fluid, and in fact you guys saw that previously. But if I do this, for example, so I go, let's make a new checklist item, and the title is going to be our clothes all over the bedroom, all over the floor.
I feel like I'm being shamed.
You feel like, oh, really? No. Are you sure? Because this audit is going to be called an Ashley audit.
This is just mean.
And so we'll only have one checklist. I mean, there's a few more I could put in, but I think one will do. So down the bottom, we should see, look, there it is. There's the Ashley audit, right? So if we return to our app now, I think we have a timer on this, maybe every few minutes, but you can manually kick it in. And like magic, we have a new Ashley audit. So let's audit Ashley. So let's go in, again, do a job number. And you notice this time, it's not actually coming up and showing any data because we haven't told it that you don't have an asset number as such, so let's not put it in. But this is useful. The pattern here that I should seriously talk about is the UI is flexible based on the type of audit that you do. That's what's cool about this. And there is Ashley's check. Are all clothes on the floor? Well, if we went in right now and took a photo, what would it be? Yes, it would be a fail. What are the corrective actions to do? Ash?
Stop going in my room.
Oh, stop going.
You don't see the clothes if you're not in the room.
Room. And let's pretend we took a few photos of the evidence of your scary room. Let's try. Oh, blurry teddies. That was for the website.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's our blurry teddies. We can have a look from this point of view. We can add some extra, here is the damning evidence. And then I cannot unsee it. And let's lock that in and let's submit that, and off we go. Yay. So what have we covered? We've covered how you can create new audit types. What else have we done? We've talked about we did do the weather. We talked about the weather API. We talked about the Google Maps thing. We've talked about the offline support, which is really cool. So what we'll do, we'll give you just a quick, maybe in future videos we'll unpack this more, because it took a bit of effort to build this app, but it's come out really nice. So just to give you a quick idea, there's a few screens, and Ashley's done a brilliant effort on a lot of the user interface stuff and worked out the intricacies of various controls and how they work together. But if you have a look, at the end of the day, there are actually 3 SharePoint lists that we're connected to. So here are the data sources for this app. We also have a custom data source to a weather API. That's one that I built, and I wrote a blog post about how to do that. So that's the weather. That's how the weather came. And these two are Microsoft Flow. These are flows. And actually, when we submit a new audit, it actually has two flows. One is to submit the overall audit, and then the other one is the photos. And we'll give you a quick look at those just real quick. Bless you. So let's go look at flows. Here's the first one. So this one, I'm just going to assume the audience has seen a bit of flow, and we'll just sort of talk to it. So we have one called Submit New Inspection, and this is a really straightforward flow. Let's go edit so you can have a look. So this one is triggered from Power Apps. So basically, Power Apps triggers this flow, and we're simply using in SharePoint a create item action. And we're basically going to the inspection list and we're putting in the audit number, the date inspected, and various other interesting pieces of information. And that's all the metadata, and that comes from the Power Apps trigger. If I click dynamic, you can see all of this sort of stuff. And it's kind of cool. If you want Power Apps to supply you more details, you can just keep clicking Ask in Power Apps, and it'll provide more parameters when you call this flow. The other flow, we won't change that. The other flow is slightly more scary, but very powerful. And I learnt this hat tip to John Liu, who really came up with this one. He's written some brilliant blog posts around this. So the other flow, actually needed to blow her nose edit.
You don't need to say that. You can just jump cut.
Well, we'll see what happens in the final edit, won't we?
Can I edit this?
No, you can't. Okay, so the other data connections, so just to bring it back, see this one, upload inspection photos, this one here, that is a flow. The flow itself, rather than being triggered by Power Apps, and I'll explain this in a bit, is this one here, upload photo to SharePoint.
You're all right there.
Brain, mouth. So the difference is that this one is not triggered by Power Apps. It's got this thing. This is something that Flow does. This is called a HTTP request trigger. And basically it turns your flow into a general web service. That means that this flow could be called pretty much from any application that has this URL and all the details in this URL. And so what we've done, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is told Power Apps, instead of talking to Flow directly, we're treating this as a custom web service, a bit like the Open Weather one that we did. It's just that Flow is on the other end. So we get a request, and we go through Flow, and we grab the file name out of the file itself out of the request. We also have this scope, they call it, called get metadata, and that pulls out the file name, the checklist item, and actually hassles me about my dodgy spelling, but I can't rename it now.
He missed a K. He got that one right, and then he missed another K, and then added two S's to make up for the two K's that he missed.
I wasn't wearing my glasses, alright? Leave me alone.
You just can't type.
Well, that's true as well. So we get a whole bunch of metadata, right? And these are consider these as variables. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So collapse that. Then the first thing we do is, in SharePoint, we've got to go and upload the file into a document library. So we go into the pics library where all of those images were. The file name, what is that? Well, it's the output of the get file name action, gets dropped in there. And the file content is the output of the get file content, get file action, which is there. And if you scroll back up, that was that one. So there's the file, that's where the file name got grabbed, and they got passed into here. Now, what that does, that creates a file, but unfortunately because of a really silly limitation in Flow, anyone that's used SharePoint will know this. Usually when you upload something into SharePoint, you have the ID of the new list or library item that you would then work with to update metadata. But this action does not return the ID. So that means we actually have to find the ID of this item. Luckily, there's another SharePoint action in Flow called get items. And what that does is that basically says, hey list or library, please retrieve me all files or all items that match a certain criteria. And a bit of ferreting around and digging and trial and error, I kind of worked out that basically you can do a query, fileleafref, which is basically an internal way to say the file name. Fileleafref equals name. Name came from this create file action. So what we're saying is get any file from this document library that happens to have the same name as the one we just uploaded. This returns the ID. And without going into ugly detail, at that point we have an update item action, and that's where we start updating metadata on each file. So if you scroll down here, things like the job number, the checklist ID, and all sorts of other various bits and pieces are put here. And this is what enables, going back to SharePoint and looking at the picture library, that is what enables all of this fabulous stuff.
Fabo.
That's
a new
Aussie.
one.
Fabo, it's a bit Oz.
Fabo's a bit camp.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. Well, fabulous is camp. It's just
No,
fabulous.
but Fabo.
Okay,
It's just so Fabo, darling.
sorry. Fabulous. But anyway, all of this stuff here is a direct result of all of that stuff there. Now, there's all sorts of other detail. This has been a high-level view, but hopefully that has been useful. And hopefully, I'm hopeful people in the Microsoft team look at this app too, because I think it is actually a very good example of what Power Apps is capable of. You've worked on it for about the last week or two, probably
2 weeks.
2 weeks, right? And
2
then
weeks.
off and on in between various things, right? You've got up to speed very quickly doing some advanced stuff. I've heard you gnashing your teeth at certain points and cursing and swearing. So what's your overall impressions of this thing from someone, because you're 18, never done IT before, so you're looking at all these new concepts and you're sort of building this stuff. What was your impressions of the whole thing?
It's logical to use, and
So you're saying logical?
Yeah,
In what kind of way? Like,
in the way that it kind of has the steps make sense.
okay.
Like to do things, it's kind of just like a giant series of equation sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, okay. And so the whole idea of calling functions and objects and the controls and their
Yeah.
properties and all of that kind of made sense?
It's a bit like a big jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
It
You've
is.
got all the pieces and you just got to put them in the right order, and then...
It is. And then you trigger something and something happens over here.
Yeah.
There's a bit of that kind of thing.
And if you find one of the pieces, then there's like a specific piece that goes with it, and
Yep.
if you mess that up, the whole puzzle's gone.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
whole puzzle's gone. And then you got to change all the names of the puzzle pieces.
Yes.
And then you got
Oh.
to add the number 1 to the end of all the puzzle pieces.
Yeah, that's...
And you have to go, because the puzzle piece has 2 sides, so you have to change the name on the first side and the second side.
That is true. So basically what Ashley's referring to is something I'll blog about, but she's referring to this idea of collections, which is sort of an in-memory thing that is fundamental to how Power Apps works. What about Flow? What do you think?
It's a bit frustrating when it doesn't get the things that you want it to get.
But it's just a
But
matter
apart
of
from-
working through.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing you were saying? You said it's not simple all the time, but it makes sense. That was your Power Apps.
Yeah. Like, there are tricky bits in there. And it's definitely got some confusing bits, but if you kind of break it all down and just look at it, it just step by step, it makes sense what it's doing.
Yep. Yep. And I think probably the most annoying thing at the moment anyway is when you do eventually make a mistake and the whole auto IntelliSense where it tries to work out what's a control and what's a variable, then you sort of type a character.
I
and-
get about 50 squiggly lines in, like, the entire app is just full of red squiggly lines going, "You've made a mistake." And then when I try to find the bit that finally made the mistake, and then I click in and I try and retype it, and I press like 3 characters, and it takes 5 minutes for it to load.
Yeah. And I think that's just because the app's gotten so big and there's so many dependencies
Yeah.
and bits hooked up to each other.
Oh.
But otherwise, hopefully you found that app, or sorry, at least hopefully you found this demonstration useful. And it shows you what Power Apps is capable of, and it's a real-world scenario, and it's a non-trivial real-world scenario. There's a lot of organisations needing to do this sort of checklist audit stuff that is currently just paper, and so at least you're capturing it effectively. And it also shows you that someone with no formal previous experience is able to pick it up and actually work with it. So I reckon it's a pretty good case study. So if you like this video, let us know, and if we have time and if you have the motivation, we might make some more, break it down a little bit more.
Break it down.
Break it down.